Hey, Merwin.
Hi, how are you? Jerry.
Well, Merry Christmas to me.
He
Thank
says
you.
he's from Needle, California.
Overslept.
Oh, neither. Yeah, I haven't either. I'm pretty
He
good.
just overslept. He's going to try to get his clothes on and get to church.
Good. I'm glad you woke him up.
He said he woke up at 8:50.
Oh my
Did
goodness.
they tell you already about somebody starting the
Yeah,
fire?
Richard Green showed me about that. Yeah.
That's a good sign.
No, no. You're wearing it out.
Till I die. So the day I take my last breath.
Terry doesn't need a microphone, does she? Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are missing some people this morning, so hopefully everything's okay. We'll find out more about it, but that means the rest you have to pick up the pace. Before we begin class, Jerry, would you start us off with a word of prayer?
Great Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we all come together to sing your praise, your portion of your word. Help those that are sick, unable to make it. We pray to you through the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, we are studying in Exodus chapter 33. And on Wednesday evening, we discussed verses 12 through 17. But, as I've brought up before, sometimes Chris says things that gives me ideas, and sometimes I say things that gives Chris ideas. So that being said, I want to discuss 12 through 17 a little bit more, a little bit different idea. I'm not covering the same thing that Chris already did, but at this point, would you say that Moses is a good leader? Yeah, I would say yes also. He cares for the people, and he cares about God, doesn't he? And also that makes him a good mediator, doesn't it? He cares about both parties, and he wants to resolve whatever issues or problems there are. So he's a good leader, and he's a good mediator. And in Exodus 33, the first 3 verses, God tells Moses that it's time to leave Mount Sinai and head towards the Promised Land, and that God would send an angel to guide them, but God's presence would not be with them. And the conversation that we're reading about here in verses 12 through 17 have to do with that God's presence was not going to go with them. So this morning, let's start off reading from Exodus 33, verses 12 and 13. like I said, there's some stuff here that Chris has already discussed, I'm not gonna go over, but there's something different that kinda I wanna talk about a little bit, that it was Chris's fault, he gave me the idea. Exodus 33 verses 12 and 13. Mom, would you read that? Terry, would you read that?
And Moses said unto the Lord, See, thou sayest unto me, Bring up this people, and thou hast not let me know whom thou wilt send with me. Yet thou hast said, I know thee by name, and thou hast found grace in my sight. Now therefore I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, show me now thy way, that I may know thee, that I may find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people.
Okay, from these two verses, do we think that Moses wants God's presence to go with him? Yes. And being a good leader, as I just mentioned, Moses is concerned about the people, and Moses is concerned about God. But in this conversation here, doesn't it sound personal?
Yeah, like he's talking directly to him.
And he is, yes, but if God's presence doesn't go with the Israelites on the journey, is that going to affect Moses? If God's presence doesn't go with the Israelites and Moses on this journey, would that affect Moses? Absolutely. Definitely. It'll affect Moses himself. Moses had cares and concerns just like we do, didn't he? And now God's saying, an angel's going to go with you, but my presence isn't going to go with you. It's definitely going to affect Moses. Let's look at the pronouns in these two verses. I'll be reading from the New King James. Then Moses said to the Lord, See, you say to me, Bring up this people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found grace in my sight. Now therefore I pray, if I have found grace in your sight, show me now your way, that I may know you, and that I may find grace in your sight. And consider that this nation is your people. In those two verses, personal pronouns are found 21 times in two verses. 11 of those times it refers to God, and 10 of those times it refers to Moses himself. But I just found that interesting. Yes, this is personal, isn't it? This is God and Moses speaking. Like we've talked about before, and Chris brought up on Wednesday, face to face. It's like two friends sitting there and talking. And we can see this is personal here between God and Moses. We don't see us here at all, do we? I, me, you, your. Through all of this 21 times. But to paraphrase here in verse 10, Moses says, I don't know who's going with me. He doesn't say us. He says me. And in saying that, let's go back now to when all this started. Let's turn back to Exodus chapter 3. And in Exodus 3, Moses sees a bush that's burning but doesn't get burned up. So he wants to go over and see it. And when he does, Moses and God have a conversation. So we're going to talk briefly about this. But first, let's start off by reading Exodus 3, verses 10 through 12. And Michelle, would you read that?
Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? So he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a
conversation that God and Moses are having. We get to this point here, God tells them a little bit about what's going on, and then we see verse 10. God tells Moses, I'm sending you to Pharaoh that you can bring my people out of Egypt. What does Moses say? Who am I that I should bring them out of Egypt? But Moses was very reluctant to do this, wasn't he? God says, I will be with you. Verse 12, I will certainly be with you. So we can see here, God gets to the point, my people are in trouble, I want to take care of them, I'm going to send you to Pharaoh, so you can go and you can bring my people out of Egypt. Moses says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Who am I? Reluctant. God says, it's okay, I'm going to be with you. Right? This is how this all started. I'm going to be with you. And then also we see, some of this I'm just going to refer to, not read, because I don't want to take too much time. But here in this chapter, in verses 16 through 22, God tells Moses exactly what's going to happen ahead of time. So he knows what's going to happen. So he's prepared. We've talked about this when we studied this. He tells them, go to the elders, tell them what I tell you to tell them. They're going to believe. Then I want you to go to Pharaoh and tell him what I told you to tell Pharaoh, but he's not going to change. He's not going to let the people go. So again, he's not going to listen. Moses knows what's going to happen before it even happens. God lets him know. Conversation letting Moses know. And as he's doing that, he's also building Moses' confidence up too, and trust, isn't he? He's not going to listen, so I will do wonders, and then he will let the people go. Moses knew this going in. We talked about that before. Moses knew what to expect because God told him what would happen. Now let's look at in chapter 4. Let's read verses 10 through 13. This is still part of that same conversation that started early in chapter 3, and it's still continuing on. Moses is still reluctant to do this. Exodus 4, verses 10 through 15. And Merlin, would you read those?
Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth, or who maketh the dumb, or deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Hath not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say. And he said, O my Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him who thou wilt send. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, Is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? I know that he can speak well, and also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee, and when he seeth thee, he will be glad in his heart. And thou shalt speak unto him, and put words in his mouth, and I will be with thy mouth, and with his mouth, and will teach you what ye shall do.
Okay, so Moses is still making excuses here. On top of all that, I'm not a good speaker. And what's God say? Who made man's mouth? I did. And I will be with your mouth, and I will teach you what to say. Again, I will be with you. Then Moses says, just send somebody else. I'm not the right guy. Send somebody else. And God says, Aaron is your brother. He's coming to see you. I will tell you what I want to say, and you tell Aaron, and Aaron will tell the people, and Aaron will tell Pharaoh. So that's the way it's going to work. I'll tell you, you tell Aaron, Aaron will be the spokesman. That's what God says here in these verses. But again, here in verse 15, I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you what you shall do. So through all this conversation, Moses is reluctant, but God's saying, I'm going to be with you. And he lets him know what's going to happen ahead of time, again, like we've already talked about. in Exodus 11, verse 1, we won't read that, but there God tells Moses, okay, there's already been 9 plagues. There's going to be one more plague. This will be it. And then he's going to let you go. And he tells them what it is. All the firstborn in Egypt's going to die. So again, Moses knows what's happening through all this. Not only was God with him, but God is telling him this is what's going to happen. So Moses knew. Now let's look at, flip over to chapter 14. The Israelites have left the land of Egypt now, and they're traveling, and now here they are camped by the Red Sea. And let's read Exodus 14, verses 3 and 4. And Tina, would you read those?
For Pharaoh will say unto the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land, the wilderness hath shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, that he shall follow after them. And I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his host, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so.
So Moses knew Pharaoh was coming. He told them ahead of time. You know, the Israelites, when they see him, they freak out. You don't see Moses freaking out here, do you? He already knew that they were coming. And God says that Pharaoh's going to come with his army. Don't worry about it. I got this covered. And Moses trusts God, doesn't he? And we see that happen. Again, all through this, I'm going to be with you, and God tells Moses what's going to happen. In Exodus 19, when they get to Mount Sinai, God tells Moses, get the people ready, because on the 3rd day, I'm going to come down on Mount Sinai. Again, letting Moses know this is what's going to happen. So there's a lot more I could have brought up, but these are just some of the high spots I wanted to present. Since this started, God says, I'm going to be with you. God is speaking to Moses, letting him know all the time what's going to happen. Now let's go back to Exodus chapter 33 again. Verses 12 and 13, which we've already read. Again, to paraphrase in verse 12, Moses says, I don't know who is going with me. Now, if you're Moses and everything that's happened, you were reluctant anyway, and you get to this point, and now God says, I'm going to send an angel, he's going to guide you, but my presence isn't going to go with you. Is that going to affect you as Moses? Absolutely. We know that. Look what's happened. All through this, Moses is a good leader. And there's times that he is bold and talks to God in a certain way. But through this, does he not rely on God? Absolutely. And he should have. There's nothing wrong here with what Moses did. But now God's saying, my presence isn't going with you. Not only is he concerned about the people, not only is he concerned about God and their relationship, he's concerned about him. I'm a leader of these people, and your presence isn't going to be with us. You've been with me all this time. Yes, it is definitely going to affect Moses. This is personal. In verse 13, now therefore I pray, I beseech, please show me your way or your path. Let me know your way or your path. To me, if I was to put that in my words, you need to let me know what the plan is. Up to this point, Moses always known what's going to happen. God's told him, we're going to do this plague. Pharaoh's not going to let you go yet, but we're going to do this plague. We're going to do this plague. He's not going to let you go. Now, there's going to be one more. Again, Moses knew all ahead of time and all this stuff. Now Moses, he's concerned because he doesn't know. What's the plan? You've been with me, so now what's happening? So Moses is concerned, and rightly so. So in these two verses here in 12 and 13, to me, if I was to sum this up in my words, Moses is telling God, I need you to go with me. And is there anything wrong with Moses feeling that way? No, not at all. If you're in Moses' shoes, you need God at this point. Look what's going on. and look at the people that he's trying to guide and the things that they've already done and complained about and everything else. So, yes, this is personal to Moses. Moses is hurting right here at this point. I need you, God. Carl, did you have a comment?
We noticed that when they were talking to Pharaoh, Aaron was to be Moses' spokesperson. But here, as we get further in here, of the children of Israel going, Aaron is not there. Joshua said Joshua was Moses' assistant or Moses' servant. So Aaron God is displeased with Aaron over the golden calf. So we don't see Aaron coming up as Moses' spokesperson during this time here anyway.
Right. But Joshua was already involved before God got upset with this, though. Joshua was the one that picked out the men to go to war against the Amalekites. But yes, Joshua, and we know what's going on here. Joshua's going to be the leader in the future. Moses is, and God's probably told Moses that. We don't read that yet here. God's probably told him already. Joshua's going to be the man after you. I want you to mentor with Joshua. But yes, at this point right now, God's not very happy with Aaron, absolutely. Go ahead, Katie.
Aaron was also coming up by getting a whole lot more duties as the high priest as well.
Yeah, he was going to have, when this is all said and done, he was going to have a lot of things to take care of himself. He had to worry about being high priest and the priests and the Levites and all that stuff, yes, would answer to him. So Moses is pleading, I pray, please go with us. Let's go ahead and read verse 14. Sandy, would you read verse 14 of Exodus 33?
And he said, my presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest.
What's God say?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay. And we talked about this before. Moses is concerned with something, and he asks God for something, and what does God do? There's no hesitation here. It's not like he hems and haws or anything. I need you to go with me. Okay. Just like that. He makes up his mind and it's done. He tells Moses, I will. My presence will go with you. But that's not the only thing he says here, is it? And I will give you rest. Now, the first time I read that, I'm thinking he's saying that for the Israelites as a whole. But when you look at context in this conversation they're having, what does it mean to give them rest? What does the word rest mean?
Peace.
Comfort, peace, exactly. So Moses and God are having this conversation, a private conversation, you might say, very personal. God says, I'm going to go with you and I will give you rest. He's talking to Moses. He can see Moses is upset. To me, this is not talking about the Israelites as a whole in this case. This is talking to Moses. I'm going to give you comfort. I'm going to be with you. Moses is upset and worried, and we can see why. Let's look at one more verse and we'll get back to continue on here in 33. But Deuteronomy chapter 4, and let's read verse 7. Deuteronomy 4 and verse 7. And Jeff, would you read that?
For what great nation is there that has God so near to it, as the Lord our God is to us, for whatever reason we may call upon him.
Moses is doing the speaking here, and he's telling the Israelites, what other nation is there that has God with them? Do you think Moses was appreciative of what God had done and that he was with them? Absolutely. So we can see here in all this conversation going on how this was affecting Moses himself personally. He was very unhappy to hear that God wouldn't be with them, and here he knows that we have been lucky. We're lucky to have God with us. But just very briefly, we go back to Exodus 33 again. Even though this is a private, personal, I keep saying private, it's a personal conversation here. And there's a lot of me, you, I. What is the last thing that he says in verse 13?
Your people.
Even though he's worried and he's hurt and he's scared, he still brings up the people, doesn't he? This nation is your people. He's still a good leader. He's hurt and he's worried, but he hasn't forgot the people yet. He's talking to God. And we see here in verse 14, God says, okay, not a problem. I'm going to go with you. Now, we won't take time to read them, but if you look at verses 15 and 16 as this conversation goes on, now we see a little bit of a shift. Because in verses 15 and 16, you see the words us or we 4 times. Don't see them any in the verses 12 and 13, but here in 15 and 16, now that God says, yes, I'm going to go, Moses kind of shifts gears a little bit, and he starts talking about the people more. So I found that interesting how this conversation went. And Chris brought up that God and Moses had a personal relationship. And he's absolutely right. And he brought that up on Wednesday. That's what got me thinking this way. If you're Moses and you're the leader of the Israelites, and we don't know for sure how many of them there were, they had a 600,000 men army. This is a lot of people. And he's trying to take care of all of them and make God happy, and all this is going on. He's in a bad spot in a way, isn't he? He's in the middle. But he was a good leader and a good mediator because he cared about both. And here, though, he's worried about him. I'm worried. I thought that was very interesting. So, to me, in verses 12 and 13, I need you to go with us. Verses 15 and 16, we need you to go with us. And of course, again in verse 17, God says, yes, doesn't he? Go ahead, Katie.
These all remind me of Matthew 28, the end of the chapter, where Christ tells his apostles when he's sending them out to do his work, I will be with you always, even to the end of the age.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of parallels there. Any other comments? Go ahead, Merwin.
I was thinking 2 things. One, the amount of trust that Aaron had in Moses. When God told Moses, I'll tell you, you tell Aaron. I mean, Aaron obviously believed that that was coming from God. And the next thing is, too, is that Moses had to believe, I mean, God says, I'll tell you, and you transfer that on. We all know what happens. If you tell Carl something and say pass it on, by the time it gets to a feast meeting, it's going to be messed up.
Could be messed up.
But when you say little things change, like you will not surely die, use the apple, and put in that word not. You will surely die, you will not. Things get changed easy.
Right.
Yet God said, I'll tell you, you tell Aaron. Aaron said, fine, I'll tell Pharaoh.
And that's absolutely true. But again, as we read earlier, what did God tell Moses? I will be with you in your mouth. I will be with his mouth. So, yes, that's right. But God was there making sure. And Moses had that trust to know that that's exactly what was going to happen. God was with them. You're going to understand that you're going to understand and Aaron's going to understand what I want. God made that clear. Go ahead, Katie.
It was eventually written down so there would be no misunderstandings.
Right.
Or there would be, because people change, people change what they want to hear.
Right. Any other comments? I just thought I wanted to talk about that briefly, because sometimes we get focused on what's going on, and rightly, what has just happened? God did exactly what he said he was going to do for the Israelites. He gets them out of Egypt. They're at Mount Sinai. He's given them the commandments. As he's giving them to Moses, they make an idol. And all this starts happening, and we see this. And through all this, we're talking about the Israelites. We're talking about God. And the guy that's in the middle, is he affected by all this? Absolutely. Chris brought that up already, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. So. No other comments? Now that what we just said brings us to verse 18. God and Moses had a personal relationship. And God has said in more than one place, Moses was special to him, wasn't he? They spoke like friends, face to face. He didn't just give him commands and different things. They had conversations and they spoke. That leads us to verse 18 here. Let's go ahead and read now Exodus 33, verses 18 and 19. And Carl, would you read that?
And he said, I beseech thee, show me thy glory. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before thee, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before thee, and will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy.
Okay, now verse 18, Moses asks for something else, doesn't he? I need you to go with me. I need you to go with us. God says yes. Now Moses says, what?
Show me thy glory.
Show me your glory. What does the word glory mean? Huh?
Greatness.
Greatness? Well, that's one way of putting it, but this Hebrew word translated glory here means splendor, majesty, grandeur. That's the idea here. Moses saying, let me see you. Let me see your splendor, your majesty. And there's many times this Hebrew word is referring to God, the glory of God, many, many times. But it's also it refers to the glory of men at times. Let's look at Genesis chapter 45. Genesis 45, and we're going to read verse 13. And this is Joseph doing the speaking here, and this is after Joseph has revealed himself to his brothers, and they have this reunion, and now he says this to his brothers. Genesis 45 and verse 13. Katie, would you read that?
So you shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that you have seen, and you shall hurry and bring my father down here.
Go tell Dad what you've seen. Look how I'm dressed. Look at my glory. Look at my splendor, the majesty. Go tell Dad what you've seen, how I look, and hurry and bring him back. That's what Joseph's saying. But here we see the word glory is referring to Joseph himself, not God. Most of the time it does have reference to God, but here it has a reference to Joseph himself. Now back to the book of Exodus. Let's look at Exodus 16. And verse 10. Because when we're talking about the glory of God, it depends on what context we're looking at. It's what we're talking about. The glory of God can be more than one thing, can't it? Exodus 16, verse 10. And in this chapter, the Israelites are complaining, man, we had it so good when we were back in Egypt. We had pots full of meat. We had this and that. And they're complaining about the food. So let's go ahead and read verse 10. And as this is happening, God has told Moses, who tells Aaron, I'm going to supply you bread, manna, in the morning. I'm going to supply you with quails in the evening. All you got to do is go out and gather it. And as we see here in verse 10, what is happening, Aaron is telling the Israelites what's going to happen. But let's go ahead and read that. Exodus 16 and verse 10. And Stacy, would you read that?
Now it came to pass, as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud.
So as Aaron is telling the people what's going to happen and how God's going to take care of them, pillar of cloud that was always with them. We don't know exactly what was going on, but it says here that the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. Enough to where it says they looked towards the wilderness. It got their attention. whatever it was, they seen the splendor of the majesty of God in this pillar of cloud. Now let's flip over to Exodus chapter 24. And we'll read verses 16 and 17. And what's going on here is God has told Moses, I want you to come up on the mountain. I'm going to give you tablets of stone. And we read that Moses and Joshua go up on the mountain. Nobody else. Before that, 70 of the elders and Aaron and at least 2 of his sons go up. This time, no. He tells them no. He tells the elders and Aaron, you guys stay here. I'm going up on the mountain. Me and him and Joshua go up. And I think Joshua only went part of the way, of course. But now this is after that. Moses is up on the mountain. Joshua's someplace up there too. Now we read about verses 16 and 17. And Rodney, would you read that? Exodus 24, 16 and 17.
The glory of the Lord dwelt on Mount Sinai. The cloud covered it 6 days. And on the 7th day he called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. Now the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on top of the mountain in the sight of the people of Israel.
Here again. Now here we know exactly what it was, doesn't it? Those others, like when the Israelites were listening to Aaron and they saw the glory, we don't know exactly what it was. Here, the glory of the Lord come down and rested on the top of Mount Sinai, and what was it? It was like fire, wasn't it? Consuming fire on the top of the mountain. Again, God just showing the children of Israel his splendor, his majesty. And that's what we're reading about here. Same idea, but Moses says, show me your glory. Moses has already seen a lot of things, hasn't he? But again, him and Moses having this personal relationship, he's saying, I want to see your majesty. Question, can we see God's glory today ourselves?
Everywhere we look.
Yes. Let's turn to Psalms chapter 19, a verse that we've read many times before, but Psalms 19 and verse 1. And Dorothy, you want to read that? Psalms 19:1. The Israelites got to see a lot of things, didn't they? But do we still see the glory of God, the splendor and the majesty? Absolutely. Just look around, like Katie said. Look up. Look around. We still see the glory of God, don't we? So, yes, we do still see the glory of God. Any comments on this? Awful quiet out there today. So Moses has this request, another request now. I need you to go with me. I need you to go with us. Now, I want to see your glory. I want to see your glory. What's God say?
No man can see me and live. And then he tells Moses what he's going to be able to see. You can't look at my face. You can look at after I go by, you can look at me.
Right. But first, what does he say? Yes. Right? Moses asked him for something. What's God say? Okay. Now this request here to me, I would almost think God would say, what? You've already asked me for this, and you asked me for this, and now you want more? But no. We see here God says, okay, I will make all my goodness pass before you. And I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. So God says yes. Now there's some conditions in this that we're going to read about, and details that that we haven't talked about yet, but to me, that when this whole conversation goes on, God just says yes, okay. Again, surprising to me in this point, in this context, but we don't know exactly. Does Moses expect to actually see God? Or is he just wanting to see something else? We don't know what's going through Moses' mind at this point. But yes, he requested to see God's glory, and God said yes. So Chris will pick up here on Wednesday evening wherever he sees fit.